Namaste. Welcome. We gather around the Life Divine again. Today is the 5th of October, 2025, here in the United States. Sri Aurobindo, basing the entirety of his philosophy on a profound set of spiritual experiences and realizations, as described for us, an indefinable, indescribable, absolute, and unknown and unknowable, because cannot become an object, because it is beyond the subject-object distinction. You might say of this unknowable that it escapes even the definition of its own true being, but it is a true being as well. And from its essential stance, as positive being, it manifests itself as a becoming, not simply that which moves, but moves in a number of worlds, through a number of forces and powers, through personalities incalculable. And this is a graded series of realities within a greater reality, which is to Sri Aurobindo an omnipresent reality, an omnipresent being, stretching from the above to the below, and lapsing above into light we cannot penetrate, and below into darkness we have not penetrated. So there is something essential to Sri Aurobindo's perspective about what we would later call this panentheistic view, and that is about what the universe does as a manifestation of this supreme being. For Sri Aurobindo, this universal phenomenon, and we've noted before that he calls it phenomenon in the singular, because the universe is a pulsating reality, all self-contained. It is one, set within the one. So the universal phenomenon is not accidental. The person, whether the great person above or that which presents itself as an individualized human here, is not an apparitional bubble. It's not meaningless. Rather, the individual is deeply connected with the transcendent, serves an undescribed purpose in the universe, and is the key to unlock the mysteries hidden and behind what we experience all the time. We have questions, we have a quest, and we come back with our brightest mind, our most powerful intellect, unsatisfied, unsure of the results we've obtained. But for Sri Aurobindo, it is true that in the individual, the transcendent acts to overturn ignorance, to release the hidden promise of the universe, to install true community in the collective. He's called his book The Life Divine, not The Life Left Behind. Because he means to embrace the world. And from the beginning to the end of his book, Sri Aurobindo insists on the demand in nature for the divine. In a way, this part of the divine, which has agreed to become the inconscient, the material universe, the vital, the mental, even the realms of light between, leading up to the supramental, and the reconstructed unity that always was there, all of this has embedded in it a drive. We noted when we looked at the first chapter how Sri Aurobindo describes that impulse that's fundamental in the cosmos, that's fundamental in the human. It's a demand that's unconquerable. This impulse inside the human is the imperative impulse, he says, by which nature is seeking to evolve beyond mind. That's a quote from him in the first chapter on page 5, the human aspiration. Imperative. So it's a term we need to deal with because from the beginning of the book on page 5 all the way to the end, this term imperative comes up again and again and again. Not simply with the idea that it's imperial, that it's something imposed, but it is, from the Latin again, imperativus, imperare, to command. It's a late Latin term, but it's talking about the capacity to issue what we would call in Sanskrit an adesh. You remember Sri Aurobindo receives an adesh, a command from above, to leave the seeming safety of Calcutta, where the police were beginning to look for him, and go to Chandranagar. And he receives a second adesh to leave that place and go to Pondicherry. Irresistible. The command comes, you simply do it. So there is a command implicit, he is saying, in the universe that doesn't take no for an answer. It's going to insist that the universe move forward, that it ignites, back to Agni, that it is stimulated to push forward into real manifestation. So this idea that above there is this imperative, in the supernals, in the supramental, beyond the supramental, in Satchit Ananda, that imperative is visible and tangible because there it is ever complete. It is both inside and the outside. There is no division. But here, in the triple world that we are evolving in, that command in the universe, that imperative, seems to be divided and derived from that supramental source and hidden so well that we no longer are sure that it's here. Is there a purpose to the world? Why are we here? Why is there suffering? Why does God permit all of this suffering and the obvious denial of the supernals of his own being, her own being, that own being? That there is a being, we in our little community will not dispute. But it can be disputed by the mind and is in every quarter of philosophy departments across the world. How they must suffer. There is, to Sri Aurobindo, this derived truth that secretly continues to unify and push forward all cosmic processes, all the individuals living in the cosmos and its processes. The world order there is hidden here behind, buried, as it were, behind veils. There, clear, transparent, you don't have to look, always present. Here, we have to dig to find it. We have to become miners. We have to perform sacrifices. We have to unite ourselves with all the cosmic energies in order to advance, become master of a particular realm, and then of all realms, and then exceed ourselves finally in a quest for true selfhood. Because we don't accept, no spiritual seeker accepts the body as the final answer for what we are. If that is so, there is no significance in the world, because there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's gone. Is there something that activates it from behind? Is there a hidden reality? Well, to Sri Aurobindo, again, that comes with accepting the quest here, but it is veiled from us and must be reacquired. We haven't really lost it, but we have to go back and gain it consciously, not simply impliedly hold it. So this is all mysterious and inaccessible to the questing mind, but it is there, experienceable to the soul. Something deeper, something more profound than simple mental inquiry. So, in the supramental, that vision holds and maintains the world order in its energies and its lines of distribution. Even here, in a derived universe, the same truth holds. And spirit and matter, Sri Aurobindo asserts, can be fused and founded again on intimate oneness. There, still, here, looking for it, can do it because growth is a power of consciousness in evolution. If Sri Aurobindo's view is right, that the supramental is an inevitable furthering of the process of evolution in the universe, then as its energy and consciousness emerges in evolution, then there will be a decisive divine imperative. It will become apparent. The imperative will become tangible to us. But here, in the perturbed and purblind mental worlds, it cannot be, it has not been, and will not be recognized in its workings. That cannot be seen by the mind. Its design, its intent, can't be construed by mental investigation or deductive reasoning. The ratiocinative mind will have to take a seat and be late to recognize it after what is inside of us emerges consciously. So, to that end, we are working. And it is only a growing power bordering, exceeding the mind, bordering and then accessing the power of intuition that can discover the aim and the sweep of that supramental truth that is hidden behind the folds and the veils of nature. So what we need to do is not become smarter, but become more soulful and brighter and leap past the mind's walls into the direct experience of true being and discover again our real identity. So it is that conscious quest which nature keeps prodding us to do, not to develop better mechanisms, not to adroitly manifest new technologies, but to demonstrate what these attempt to do materially from within, extrapolating inner truths into the waiting, receptive vessel, which is the human nature, the body. So, how do we prepare for that? It is yoga. And so we talked about the various things that we have to do in yoga. We have to concentrate, we have to purify, we have to uplift, we have to offer, we have to become less attached to the usual definitions of what we are and melt those distinctions in an overpowering experience of true selfhood. We have to become ready for an invasion of the infinite, fearlessly welcome it. We have to become plastic and clear in that awareness. We must become able to see the whole cosmos and what it is, and also the dark side of the cosmos, not just the inconscient below, but all our lamentations about those who have left us and all the losses that we've scored for ourselves. All of that is being digested and recycled and ready for reuse behind the scenes in a part of the world that we can no longer see because our vision is restricted to the mere daylight of ordinary existence. And we need to be able to subsume all possible darkness and light in a greater reality. So this is not a puzzle for us, it's a question of vision, to see the essence, to see the whole, the multiple ones within the whole requires great growth. Because there is one, and in each one is that one again. So, lifting ourselves above the current human formula, we must experience the self. What Vedanta calls the Atman. Yes, we must achieve that static poise of the Atman in silence. It is indispensable if we wish to achieve the supramental consciousness. But it is part of the yogic consciousness too, to unite with the dynamic, delightful consciousness at play in the universe. His yoga is based on this integrative truth. It's why he calls it Purna Yoga, in reality omnipresent. That chapter. So the spiritual experience of release, requisite, valid in itself, does not invalidate the cosmic journey or the purpose embedded in it. Indeed, the call to be released from the folds of ignorance is a necessary precondition for almost all who aspire to the integrative truth of supermind. If you want that, this must be one. But Atman, that still silence, vast, undisturbed, infinite in scope, is an aspect of Chit. And we've seen that Chit, consciousness, is instinct with power. Chit tapas, conscious power, is identical with essential being. And what emerges from it in manifestation is intentional, carries an intent which is real and flawless in conception as undertaken by the rhythm, the conscious power of the supramental above. And it is that which invests itself in this cosmos. Here's a quote from Sri Aurobindo. The Absolute can have no need of anything, but still there can be, not coercive of its freedom, not binding on it, but an expression of its self-force, the result of its will to become, an imperative of a supreme self-effectuating force, a necessity of self-creation born of the power of the Absolute to see itself in time. This imperative represents itself to us as a will to create, a will of self-expression, but it may be better represented as a force of being of the Absolute which displays itself as a power of itself in action. So a power of itself in action, creative, discovering, exuberant in its course across the cosmos. That's the soul. That's us, a spark of the divine's own being. We represent this endless ascent, climbing up in dynamic terms. That soul is real, not a fiction, yet not confined to the form it ensouls or inhabits. In other words, this vehicle is blessed, felicitated by the presence of the soul within it. And matter that meets the soul feels that charge, and that body lights up that portion of the globe in which it sits and stands and walks. But the soul contains that spark fire of the supreme will. That hidden purpose in the universe is articulating itself, speaking through our lives as we try to create this piece of beauty, that fashion, that shape of truth, this earnest energy that carries forward things to completion. Its presence in this soul is an announcement to the worlds that their ultimately unseen goal will ultimately be seen and realized. It is only unseen by the scrutinizing mind, which can't see vastly. But the soul is capable of keeping the mind as a useful companion, and yet outgrowing it and developing a greater conscious tool that speaks to its oneness with world, power, beauty, self, and other self. The opposition of nescience, then, that which seems to deny this supreme conscious will, is terminable. And this opposition is merely phenomenal. It deals with phenomena, not with essential truths. And this opposition is fractional. As long as it can divide and maintain control over the fraction of reality that it thinks it possesses, it's happy. But it always wants more, and it must fail because it is a fractional consciousness. The nescience is not the ultimate truth of being. Inconscience is not the origin of the world. As we've seen before, the world tree, its roots are above, not below. It is the superconscient, supramental, and greater values that produces the cosmos that we currently inhabit. So the important point for us is that we are closer to realizing that than we think we are. But as we cling to what we have been and won't let go of those robes and undress and get ready for new robes, we hinder the process. We can't go back. There is no going back. There is no retrogression that goes back, really, in a helpful way. We forget something, we dash back, pick it up, and come back quickly and regain our pace. That is all. We're not going back centuries. We cannot afford to do that. The universe will not permit it. So we're going forward towards union, towards communion, because it is that which unifies, which wins for us the cosmic goal, that fulfills that hidden purpose in the universe. This is Sri Aurobindo's vision. This must be done. It is imperative. It is not us who demand it, merely it is that which demands it. So, when we hear Sri Aurobindo's voice on this topic, when we view with his unitive vision what the scope, what the magnificence is in the arc of the cosmic development, we're smitten, we're taken up, swept up into a lifelong endeavor at self-discovery and world change, betting everything that we have, everything we could have, on that wager. You watching this, listening to this, are part of that forward moving, illumined guard. You are the undefeatable integer. One, again, of that number. A flame that cannot be quenched by appearances and apparent reversals and the eventual failure of your natural equipment. So what? The soul stands free and absolved. But significant goals, as we've touched on, are within reach. All these quests begin inside. There is no outside solution, barring the discovery of the inner. If that only remains to us as a conceit or a concept, that flimsy shell will be washed away with time. But what we realize inside not only stays with us, but counts as a marker in the universal advance. The traction we win when we know what we are and act in nature on that basis. When we consecrate our action in that fire of purification and exaltation, that is really putting our shoulder behind the wheel and assisting in the universal advance. That demands from us participation in the cosmos, surrender, basically losing the boundaries of our ego, because we're pretty comfortable with our egos now. I don't think we need to continue with them. We can afford to let them go. And if they persist in hanging around, well, just please don't get in the way. But this idea of participation and surrender, this is really the keynote of bhakti, which we always take to mean only devotion. It's just the emotion of devotion that we're talking about with bhakti. No, it's connecting to, reunifying oneself with, participating in, having a share in. So this cosmic growth is something we all share together. So Our next beachhead is not directly to ascend to the supermind, but to find our souls, live in solidarity, and reach upwards to intuition. Intuition is a fourfold power. We perhaps can talk about that another time, but here's another quote from Sri Aurobindo. You'll be glad to hear his language again. This is from his chapter of the Gnostic Being towards the end of the book. In all action, there is an imperative of existence that seeks to be fulfilled. A truth of being, not yet manifested, has to be manifested, or a truth manifesting has to be evolved and achieved and perfected in manifestation, or if already achieved, to take its delight of being and self-effectuation. In the half-light and half-power of the ignorance, the imperative is secret or only half revealed, and the push to fulfillment is an imperfect, struggling, partly frustrated movement. But in the Gnostic being and life, the imperatives of being would be felt within, intimately perceived and brought into action. There would be a free play of their possibilities. There would be an actualization in accordance with the truth of circumstance and the intention in the supernature. All this would be seen in the knowledge and develop itself in act. There would be no uncertain combat or torment of forces at work. A disharmony of the being, a contradictory working of the consciousness could have no place. The imposition of an external standardization of mechanized law would be entirely superfluous, where there is this inherence of truth and its spontaneous working in act of nature. A harmonic action, a working out of the divine motive, an execution of the imperative truth of things would be the law and natural dynamics of the whole existence. That's on page 1043 if you want to go read those wonderful sentences again. But back to us. A couple of more quotes from Sri Aurobindo about the nature and the importance of the individual. We've seen the big picture about that which is beyond anything, which becomes the all, which is the universe. But what about the individual, transcendent, universal, and now individual? Quoting from page 723 in the Progress to Knowledge, God, Man, and Nature. It is because of the spiritual person, the divinity in the individual, that perfection or liberation, salvation as it is called in the West, has to be individual and not collective. For whatever perfection of the collectivity is to be sought after can come only by the perfection of the individuals who constitute it. It is because the individual is that to find himself is his great necessity. And one more, back towards the beginning of the book in the chapter, The Destiny of the Individual. The individual is still necessary to the action of the transcendent in the universe. And that action in him does not cease to be possible by his illumination. On the contrary, since the conscious manifestation of the transcendent in the individual is the means by which the collective, the universal, is also to become conscious of itself, the continuation of the illumined individual in the action of the world as an imperative need of the world play. If his inexorable removal through the very act of illumination is the law, then the world is condemned to remain eternally the scene of unredeemed darkness, death, and suffering. So the point, that's the end of the quote. So the point is that our job to create a perfect society, a harmony among many individuals, can't be achieved if we haven't done it really inside first. At least some of us, those who aspire to yoga, must become conscious centers of light in various centers, in various collectivities around countries and worlds, for this to become a present reality. We can grow into it when we ourselves have done that individual growth. That's the meaning of yoga. So, yes to spiritual collectivities. First things first. What about our personal work? What about our personal change? If we undergo personal transformation, then social transformation becomes a potential. So if we want a better world, we build it from inside the individual and then found it in new social fabric. So, with your permission, I'll read from Savitri. This is one of the great passages in the epic poem. We're still in Book 1, the Book of Beginnings. It's a happy place to be. On page 54, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge. Above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon, see its mystic source. These heed not the deceiving outward play. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn for the slow footsteps of far destiny, approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause, unheard mid the clamor of the human plain. Attentive to an unseen truth, they seize a sound as of invisible augur wings, voices of an unplumbed significance, mutterings that brood in the core of matter's sleep. In the heart's profound audition, they can catch the murmurs lost by life's uncaring ear, a prophet's speech in thought's omniscient trance. Above the illusion of the hopes that pass, behind the appearance and the overt act, behind this clockwork chance and vague surmise, amid the wrestle of force, the trampling feet, across the cries of anguish and of joy, across the triumph, fighting and despair, they watch the bliss for which earth's heart has cried, on the long road which cannot see its end, winding undetected through the skeptic days, and to meet it guide the unheedful, moving world. Thus will the masked transcendent mount his throne. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. As a thief's in the night shall be the covered tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey, a power into mind's inner chambers steal, a charm and sweetness open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world. The truth light capture nature by surprise, a stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the Spirit's glow, in body and body kindled the sacred birth. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars, the days become a happy pilgrim march, our will a force of the Eternal's power, and thought the rays of a spiritual sun. A few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be naught till the work is done. So, more than hope. Your future abode is already inside you. Look within, find that light, express that beauty, create a new world. Let's all join hands and attempt this now. Much love to you all. Namaste. Jai Ma.